Welcome to episode 10 of the Mental Dietitian Podcast. I'm your host, Ahren Lynch-potter, and today we are going to talk about pornography and why it's so dangerous and what it's actually doing to you and how bad it actually is for your brain. This one is probably more so for the men than it is for the women, but a lot of women do not really comprehend how badly most men struggle with pornography addictions. Like, it's crazy. Just a disclaimer, I used to watch a lot of it. I used to watch it 5 times a week minimum. Used to watch it sometimes twice a day. And I had an issue with it. I can proudly now say that I have watched porn once in 5 years. Had a moment of weakness probably about a year and a half, 2 years ago, which was when I smoked some marijuana, smoked some weed. And when I smoke that, it doesn't really agree with me. I've never really liked it. It turns me very hedonistic. It makes me want to seek easy pleasures like eating all the bad food, ordering pizza. I watched porn. That one time I was like, what the fuck am I doing? This is not who I am. I know how bad this is for me. But there you go. You know, you're always going to get the real thing from me. I'm always going to be real. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I'm going to be real and be vulnerable because I know that I can develop trust like that. I know that if I'm real in this world that is really, really fake sometimes, and you can't really know who to go to for real information or a real perspective because they might be trying to sell you something. There might be some kind of hidden agenda. I'm going to be real. But I'm really proud of myself for completely eradicating pornography out of my life because it destroys your brain. It really, really messes up your brain. In fact, most men don't take it seriously how much it's affecting their life until it affects erectile dysfunction, which is one of the main things that happens. Why can it affect erectile dysfunction? Because reality becomes boring when you can go on your phone and be like, I want bigger boobs. I want more tattoos. I want a bigger bum. I want a smaller bum. I want a black girl. I want a white girl. I want an Asian girl. I want this. I want that. I want that. And if you're in an intimate relationship, the real thing is now tarnished sometimes. Do you know why scientifically? Because you're destroying your dopamine receptors in your brain. What is dopamine? What is it for? It's a reward chemical. It rewards you. Things like gambling and watching pornography and playing video games and even watching movies and TV shows, all this kind of stuff. It rewards you with dopamine. It feels good. You play a game on your phone, you get to a next level, you get a jam, you get a jewel, whatever it may be. I sell a car at work. It's a dopamine hit. You finish a set at the gym. You're like, oh yeah, that was awesome. There's so many ways to get dopamine. The really bad ways are the ones that are just like over and over and over again. And here's the thing about pornography is it's such a dangerous road to go down because what I've seen and what the science shows that, say you first start watching porn, especially men, in a 2-minute search, you will see 1,000 times, 1,000 years worth of women that compared to what you would have seen 1,000 years ago. Has our brain developed that much in 1,000 years and evolved that much in 1,000 years? No. But if you pump like all these images, the average guy can literally go on his phone and see more women by scrolling on his phone than a man 1,000 years ago would have seen in 1,000 years. Think about that for a second. That is fucking insane. What does that do to our brains? Well, it's so much stimulus to our brain that it really messes us up. So you first start watching it, you're like, oh, wow, this is awesome. I mean, when I first started watching, I was like, whoa. And I never got to this point, thank God. But I know people that have. They watch it and they're like, they want to watch something a little bit weirder. So they watch something a little bit weirder. And what can happen is then violence can start getting involved in it. Maybe hit the girl or something, slap her on the face. She's like, oh, I like that. And you're like, whoa. Now you're combining violence with the sexual stimulus in your brain. And studies have shown that the more you watch porn, the greater it takes more and more and more to get that dopamine release, just like any addiction. Doesn't matter what it is. You start with this much, whatever, to get the dopamine hit, and you take more and more and more to get that dopamine hit. What does it mean with pornography? It usually creates crazier and crazier things, violence, things like that. And what does that do in intimate relationships? Well, it really messes things up really, really badly. Now, here's what I'm not saying. Here's what I'm not saying. I am not saying that if you watch porn, you're going to become a domestic abuser of your spouse. I'm not saying that. What I am saying, though, is it's more likely. That's what the studies show. That's what research shows. Obviously, in severe cases, I'm not talking about the person who maybe watches porn 2 to 3 times a week. But I completely eradicated it because I knew it felt like anytime I watched it, it felt like I was cheating on Lexi. Because what am I really imagining? I'm imagining myself being in that situation, being with these other women, when I have a beautiful woman right in front of me. I've said this to men and they get triggered. I don't see it like that. I'm like, I do. What other way is there to see it? What other way is there to see it? If you're listening to this right now and you're getting triggered, let me just tell you a quote that I heard once. Whatever makes you squirm in your life is something you need to pay attention to. If you're listening to this and you physically feel yourself uncomfortable, and you physically have a voice inside you that is like, he's full of shit. He's not, this is not true. Blah, 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 blah. That is a sign that maybe it is an issue. That is a sign. If you're right, just turn it off for a month. See how you feel. See what it does to your brain. Another thing I've noticed that it does, especially with men, is that they can't have conversations with women. Like they've stimulated their brain so much with so much sex that everywhere they go, like men are already biologically wired to want sex. We already are. It's like already in our DNA. Literally, DNA. Men want to breed. They want to mate. They want to have sex. It's a biological thing. But then you put all this stimulus into our brains and you make it worse. You just pump it in there. I've met people that it's all they talk about. All that comes out of their mouth is something to do with sex or something to do with, and it's like their brain is completely immersed and wrapped in it. It's crazy. And it's really sad, to be honest, because as soon as you get away from it, you see the dark side of it. You see the dark side of what it's actually doing to your brain. It can affect, it really can affect a depression. It can affect serious anxiety. People have serious anxiety disorders because of it, because they're destroying their dopamine. They're constantly getting a dopamine rush that when they're not getting that rush, they feel down. I was reading when I studied for this podcast, I was listening to this guy on YouTube, and he had a person he was treating. They were 28 years old and they were on antidepressant medication, all this kind of Xanax, like all this crazy stuff for 10 years from when he was 18 till he was 28. All these different things, tried everything. What he didn't try is stopped watching porn. He stopped watching porn. 2 months later, he wasn't taking any medication. He had no erectile dysfunction anymore because that was a problem he had, which also contributed to his depression because he didn't feel like he was a man. He didn't feel like he was a real man. And he was completely like, no more symptoms. Because it's not just watching that. It's not just like, oh, well, it's not a big deal. It is a big deal because it's literally fucking your brain up. You can't concentrate on things properly. Oh, I only watch it every now and then. Okay. But how do you feel afterwards? I remember afterwards, Like you're done. You're like, oh, I never felt good. It doesn't leave you from feeling good. That's for sure. It's not like, you know what? I feel really empowered right now. Um, I feel really proud of myself. I felt like almost a sense of shame. I'm like, what the fuck? What did I watch that for? I don't like, what was that? Well, what was that? And I had this really critical voice. But then what happens is becomes this feedback loop. And then you do it because it does make you feel good. And then you have this shame, and then you want to do it again. And then you have this shame, and then you do it again. It becomes this feedback loop over and over. And that's what addiction is. And you can get addicted to anything. So my biggest message is, and a lot of guys, like most men that I know, struggle with pornography. I've helped some people that I know, I've helped them quit. And every single one of them without fail is like, man, I feel so much better. I feel so good. I would highly recommend doing your research, really doing your research and be like, is porn bad for me? What can it do to my mind? The biggest thing that you should get out of this podcast is the amount of stimulus that we feed our brains, whether or not it's through social media, through all the content we view every day, and then when you combine that with like pornography, it's really damaging to our brains. And there's a lot of people that saying, especially pornography, it has been listed as the most addictive thing to watch on the internet. Because what is it doing? It's biologically targeting men's deep wanting to procreate. Like we want to mate. We want to see beautiful women. We want that feeling like, oh my God. With like this, a massive amount of dopamine stimulus. And you combine those two things. Some people are saying it's like in 30 years from now, people will look at pornography as if it was smoking. But we don't see it right now because it's normalized. And then you look at all the music videos and you look at social media. A lot of stuff on Instagram is basically softcore porn. It's just everywhere. And don't get me wrong, like if you see a beautiful woman and you're like, whoa. But if you're doing that too much, that will fuck you up. And number one, you can't have an intimate relationship properly because that person that you're with will never measure up to the custom thing that you can create on your phone through typing in different words about what you want to see. It's, I don't know. I'm not going to choke about on it all night, but I wanted to talk about this because not a lot of people talk about it. It's a taboo subject. People don't like talking about it. And a lot of women have not a clue how much it is a problem with men. Like they have no idea. They're like, oh yeah, like watches it every now and then. My boyfriend watches every now and then. It's like, no, like it's a big deal. You really need to look into it, to start researching about it. And if somebody listening to this stops watching porn, I can guarantee you it will benefit your life. This is a hill that I will die on. It is literally something I'm so passionate about. I don't watch it at all. I don't watch it. It ruins my brain. It makes me into a weirdo. It makes me into somebody that I'm not proud of. And if you're struggling with it, you can seek help. And if anybody listening to this wants to talk to me about how I conquered it, please reach out to me. Please reach out to me on social media. Get a hold of me. I'll even jump on a phone call with you or a Zoom call. Dead serious. It's something that I think will really, really benefit your life. And I would really recommend doing your research and looking into all the benefits from not watching pornography. So on that note, have a fantastic day. Have a fantastic week, no matter where you are listening to this. And if you're struggling with something like this, you're not alone. It's the biggest thing. You're not alone. A lot of people struggle with it. A lot of people have conquered it and are now living more fulfilling, more rich lives that they're proud of, and you can get way more done and you can be a more whole human being. So love you all. Hope this benefits some of you and I look forward to hearing from you. Bye.